Welcome back everyone. Hi, if you're new, my name is Tori and today we have arrived at the biggest, most exciting video of the year. This is the best books of 2020. Filming the best books of the year is seriously one of my favorite videos to film every single year. It is like the one I look forward to starting in July. I'm just always so excited by the time this video rolls around and I sit down and just go through all of the books that I read through the year and pick out the best 10. So at the time of filming this video, I've read 72, almost 73 books, and I think I can squeeze in a couple more before the end of the year. But because of that, because that number is a little bit up from last year, putting this list together, at least the bottom half of the list, was a lot more challenging than it was last year because there are at least 5 books that I could have easily put in somewhere in the bottom of this list. Even some of the books that I read this year that I thought were just great reads, some of them amazing reads, just ended up not making this list this year. So if you're unfamiliar, I always do a top 10 list. I like the number 10. I just think it's a good, just nice, clean cutoff number. It makes things a little more interesting, the competition a little more exciting, and it just really forces me to sit down and think about each individual book that I read. So this list is ranked. I like rankings. So we're going to start at number 10, the 10th best book of the year, and then we're going to work our way up to the number 1 spot, which is, in my opinion, just complete perfection. This is an incredible, incredible list of books that I pulled together this year. Despite 2020 being what it was, the reading year was amazing. The quality of books I read this year was just even better than last year, if you can believe that. I'm so excited to share these books with you guys. You have to read all of these. I put this on you guys every year that you have to read the best books on the list because these books are just that great. So I keep looking over here because the stack of books is just staring me in the face. One of the books on this list was one that I just finished a couple of weeks ago, and it made its way pretty high up on the 2020 list. So yeah, let's get into it. This is gonna be a lot of fun. Get your Goodreads open because you're gonna be wanting to mark down some of these. That is pretty much it. So let's get into it. These are the best books that I read in 2020. Okay guys, let's get this party started. Coming in at number 10 is The Passage by Justin Cronin, and there are honestly so many books that I could have put in the 10th spot, so many books that I love this year they could have been here, but there is something about The Passage that I just was not able to get out of my head this year. I read this earlier in the year, around like March or April, I believe, so a while ago, and I seriously cannot stop thinking about this. This is an epic, very epic post-apocalyptic novel. The foundation of this novel is we have the US government or the US military performing experiments on 12 different inmates, and the effects of these experiments, these viruses that they've been injecting into the inmates, have been turning them into creatures that we think of as vampires. That's pretty much one side of the story. And then on the other, we have this young girl named Amy who was abandoned by her mother and just really has no one in the world, nowhere to go. So she ends up at this convent and her story is just really sad. I love Amy so much. And so we have Amy, we have these inmates getting these injections. And so when things just really start going horribly wrong, these agents are sent to find Amy and bring her into the facility where these experiments are happening. And the kind of thought behind this is the fact that she's so young and that her immune response to these injections will be a lot different from the inmates. But it turns out Amy is special. She does have kind of this special relationship, I guess, with the virus that she's injected with. And so that is really the foundation of this story. It spans a lot of years. I've mentioned this before. There's a pretty significant time jump that happens in The Passage, and we're really getting the full scope of this outbreak that happens in the story. And from there, we're following a lot of different characters as they really just try to survive in this post-apocalyptic world pretty much. And I fell in love with this story. Again, I've read The Stand by Stephen King a long time ago, and it has been a long time since I have read something like a post-apocalyptic novel as epic as that in scope. So The Passage seriously has just been staying on my heart all year. I really love this book. I fell in love with Justin Cronin's writing style, and I'm really looking forward to continuing on with the trilogy. Coming in at number 9 is The City of Brass, and this is by S.A. Chakraborty, and this is the first book in the Daevabad trilogy. And this is such a richly crafted, just well-drawn world. I fell in love with these characters. I seriously enjoyed everything about this story. It is a little slow in the middle, but I loved everything about this story. So this is a Middle Eastern inspired epic fantasy novel, and in it we are following a couple of different main characters. Our first is Nadi, and she is this con woman living in Cairo, and she really doesn't have any knowledge of her past and where she comes from. And Nadi, one day she accidentally ends up summoning this jinn named Dara, and Dara, he has a little bit more insight into who Nadi is, and he ends up taking her on this epic sweeping journey that leads her to Daevabad, the city of brass. And from there we get a lot of the court politics that are happening. We get just epic magic and just great character relationships, and I really enjoy this. I mentioned earlier when I was reading this book that it just feels so warm and so comforting, and just the scope of the world building of this book is what drew me into it so fiercely, because it just I don't know, it just feels so good when you're reading it. It just feels, I love these characters, I love Nari, I love the story, and I'm so excited to continue on with the rest of the series. So the City of Brass is definitely one that is worth the hype. It is worth the read, and it was an incredible 2020 read for me. Number 8, it should be no surprise, guys, that this one is on the list. Just, I feel like you already know, The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. This was another one that was incredible. I expected nothing less from N.K. Jemisin, honestly, from her new fantasy series. So this is the first in a planned trilogy, and this is an urban fantasy novel, and just how intricate the story is, how wildly imaginative it is just, it's perfect. So this takes place in New York City, and it takes place in a world where cities are pretty much these living beings, and each city has its own avatar. And so in New York City there are 5 boroughs, and so we have 5 different characters that we're following, and each character is the literal embodiment of a different New York City borough, and they all pretty much have to come together throughout the story and find their way to each other, because there is this ancient evil that is brewing in the city and threatens to destroy New York and just pretty much everything. So I think we just have such a great cast of characters in here, especially the character that is supposed to be the embodiment of Brooklyn. She's just amazing. So I had so much fun with this. N.K. Jemisin's writing style is just unmatched. She has this perfect comedic timing in her writing, just really quick-witted characters, but at the same time N.K. Jemisin knows how to navigate and just really confront really bold issues that we're facing in society. Gentrification, racism, just all of that is just so expertly explored and handled in this book, and I seriously love The City We Became so much. Coming in at number 7, we have To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers, and this is a novella, and this just pretty much confirmed that I love Becky Chambers' writing style. I love her characters. I have read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which I highly recommend by her. I still need to finish up that trilogy, or actually series. There's another one coming next year, but I mean, this novella just made me love Becky Chambers' writing even more. So in this novella, we have a crew of astronauts who leave Earth to essentially go survey the ecology of different planets and see if they're suitable or habitable for human life, pretty much. But the cool thing is, these characters, they're able to change themselves in order to fit the environment of the planet while they're surveying it. Because, you know, they could step on a planet, and just by the fact that they're human, they could completely change the nature of whatever planet they land on. So just that aspect of the story, I think, is already incredible. And so the story is told through one of the crewmates' perspectives, Ariadne, and she is essentially chronicling their journey, but also telling it in the hopes that someone still might be listening on Earth, because while they're in the middle of one of their missions and one of their planets, they realize that Earth has stopped responding to their communication, and they have no idea what happened on Earth, what's going on, and now they're out here pretty much flying blind, and our story really goes from there. But this is just such a beautifully written story about just humanity and our place in the world and exploration and just so many just amazing things, and I cannot recommend this novella highly enough. Coming in at number 6, also shouldn't really be a surprise at this point. I've mentioned this a couple of times and how much I've really enjoyed this book, but that is House of Earth and Blood, and this is by Sarah J. Maas, and this is the first book in the Crescent City series. I am so excited for book 2. I cannot wait for it to come out, and I love this book. So in this novel, we're following our main character, Bryce Quinlan, who is half human, half fae, and she is pretty much a party girl, but something tragic happens one day, and this demon is set loose in the city, and it kills Bryce's close group of friends. And the story from there takes a completely different shift, and Bryce takes it upon herself to start getting to the bottom of what actually happened that night and what happened to her friends, because this creature is still loose in the city. We also have our other main character, Hunt. I love Hunt so much. We have him in the story, and he is an angel, and he's essentially sent to look after Bryce and just keep an eye on her as she is digging deeper into this investigation. And the two of them start growing closer, but as they start peeling back the layers of what happened, things just get really wild in this book. I think Sarah J. Maas just did a great job hitting just so many different emotional beats throughout this story. So by the end of it, I don't cry when I read books, but I was actually like getting a little teary-eyed when I was getting towards the end of this book. I think the tone of the story is just perfectly set. It gets a lot darker, and I think that just leaves a lot of room for the emotional beats in the story to really take effect. Bryce is a great character. The grief and guilt that she harbors from that night just follows her throughout the story. And even beyond that, we have this really big world full of all these different creatures who belong to different like houses. Pretty much we have fairies and demons and angels and fae and sprite, and I mean, like, anything you could think of is probably in this book somewhere. This was actually an amazing fantasy novel, and I highly recommend this. Okay guys, we are now in the top 5. Things are getting a little intense. So coming in at number 5, again, no surprise. I feel like none of these are going to be surprises now, but coming in at number 5 is The Traitor Baru Cormorant, and this is by Seth Dickinson, and this is the first book in the Traitor Baru Cormorant series. Well, trilogy. This is an extremely slow burner political fantasy novel. In this novel, we're following our main character, Baru Cormorant, who is pretty young when her island is invaded by the Empire of Masks, and they come and they take over everything. And Baru, she never really lets go of that hatred that she has for the Empire of Masks, and she basically vows to do whatever she can to infiltrate their ranks, to just pretend to be going along with everything. She vows to do all of that in order to take them down from the inside. So she just kind of keeps her head down. She does well in school, and by the time she's ready to graduate, she's actually given a position in one of the kind of more politically tumultuous regions in this land, and she's put in charge of that region's like finances. And just the moves, the strategic moves that Baru makes throughout this book, they are so good. You can just, it feels like, honestly, like she is playing chess and everybody else around her is playing checkers. She's thinking 3 steps ahead. She's doing things that just might make her a little unpopular, but doing one move will get her 4 spaces ahead. It's just, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I love Baru as a character so much. Seriously fell in love with her just from the first couple of chapters in this story. And again, this is such a slow story, but it just works so well. And by the time you finish it, you're just, I don't know, it's just great. It's great. Oh my God, I can't believe we're getting down to the wire. We're at number 4. Coming in at number 4 is a book that I just finished a couple of weeks ago. And I mentioned a few videos ago that I was going to hold off on filming my best books of 2020 because I was reading this number 4 book in December, and I thought it might be able to squeeze its way somewhere on the best books of 2020 list because I was really looking forward to it, and I just had a feeling I would really enjoy it. I had no idea it would be able to shoot up to the number 4 spot the way it did. Baru Cormorant was in the number 4 spot, and I had to apologize to it. So this is just how amazing this next book is. If you've been following me on Instagram, you already know that I am obsessed with just everything that happens in this book. That is Jade City by Fonda Lee. Good Lord in heaven. This is an amazing, amazing book. I have a full review of this coming out this coming Sunday, and I just cannot wait to dive a little bit deeper into this book with you guys. But I love this book so much. I love these characters so much. Where do we start? I don't even know what to say. What is this book about? This takes place on this island nation known as Kakan, and on Kakan, Jade pretty much controls everything. As the synopsis mentions, Jade is the lifeblood of the city. However, there are only a certain group of people on Kakan that can wear and can control Jade, and those people are known as Greenbones. And so in this novel, Greenbone warriors are a part of different clans. There are a few different clans in Kakan, but our main 2 that were that we really get to know in this first book are No Peak Clan, and then we also have the Mountain Clan. Even though we're following characters primarily from the No Peak Clan, we still have this like front row seat of the effect that the Mountain Clan and their moves are having on No Peak. In No Peak, we have the Call family, we have Lan and Hilo and Shay, who are all siblings, and they just... oh, I love them so much. And both clans have actually recently gone through a transition of power that kind of make them vulnerable to each other in different ways. That's just kind of the setup of the story. We haven't even gotten into like the thick of things yet. There's this drug known as Shine that is being produced. People who are not green bones, they can take Shine and they have the ability to wear jade. And that's just never happened before. And so because this drug is now in Janloon, the city on Kakan, because of that, the clan leaders have different ideas about how this drug Shine should be handled. And just the ways that they go about trying to do that just bring out some really ugly fighting on both sides. Misunderstandings start happening. Things just get really ugly, and it's just so incredible. This is I don't know. Just read it. Just please read it. That's all I can say about this right now. I will be going deeper into this in my full review, but as of right now, I feel like I'm still kind of like on this Jade City high and thoughts are not coming out properly. So this was incredible. Number 4 book of 2020. It doesn't get any, actually 3 get better than this, but it doesn't get any better than this. So go read Jade City. All right, guys, we have made it to the top 3 books of 2020. This is it. We're getting down to the wire here. Coming in at number 3, no surprise. Sally, if you're watching this, you called it. Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. Where do we start? Where do we start with this perfection of a novel? I don't know. So in this novel, the world has just really gone through a huge climate and economic crisis. And so the country has really been split off into these different communities. And so in this, we're following our main character, Lauren, who lives in this community with her father and her siblings. Her father is a preacher, and he is pretty much the one that tries to hold the community together and is preaching these just values and morals and basically how to live life in these difficult times pretty much. But Lauren, she is so... she's such an amazing character. She just really has so many questions about religion and God and faith. And so this novel is actually told to us in the style of Lauren's journal entries as she's questioning the world and just what's happening and things around her, and just trying to be a young girl in this ever-changing world pretty much. And so as she begins to question these teachings, these religious teachings more specifically, Lauren begins to sort of create her own religion known as Earthseed. And so as the community starts changing and things around Lauren begin collapsing, family members go through some difficult times, things just start to break down. And from there, Lauren becomes kind of the beacon of change and what that looks like, and people begin to follow her. It's so funny because I feel like I always find it even more difficult to talk about books that I absolutely love without just rambling on and on about it, but I love this book so deeply. I love Octavia Butler. She's one of my favorite authors, and this is just, this is amazing. Lauren is an amazing character, just one of the best characters I've ever read about, and just her view of the world. She's so perceptive. I'm forgetting the main thing of the story. She's really perceptive. She's like, she has this really strong empathetic ability. So Lauren can feel like what other people are feeling, what they're going through. And so that helps her just kind of perceive things a lot deeper than everybody else and give her this greater understanding of the world. I cannot believe I just like completely blanked on the fact that she has an actual gift. That's a huge part of the story. The fact that I mentioned that she's perceptive just like reminded me of that. And she kind of grapples with all of those emotions through her journal entries. So she's just such a fascinating, such an incredible character, and just probably one of my favorite characters of all time. So this is a must read. Every Octavia Butler book I feel like at this point that I've read is a must read. So you definitely have to go check out Parable of the Sower. This is top notch. I know you know what this next book is. Number 2. You haven't seen it yet, so I'm pretty sure you know what it is. That book is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This book is amazing. This was just an emotional, thought-provoking journey, unlike anything that I have read in 2020. By the time I finished this book, it felt like, I hate this line in literature so much, it felt like I let out a breath I didn't even know I was holding. But no, it really does feel like that. Like when you turn that final page and you close the cover, it really does feel like some kind of weight that just lifts off your shoulders, and you just feel a little disoriented. You don't know where you are, what's going on, because you have just been through something incredible. So this book takes place in primarily a couple of different time periods. The first is late 17th century, early 18th century France, where Addie was, where she grew up. And then we also get the story in our more present day of 2014. In 18th century France, Addie is from this really small village, and she just feels so suffocated by the life that people are leading in this village, and she doesn't want that for herself, and she just wants to just explore life, live life, and not be confined by time. And so when Addie is about to get married, that's when everything just kind of snaps for her. She flees into the woods, and it's there that she conjures this darkness known as Luke, and he grants her this desire that she has to not be constrained by time. But the catch is, yes, she will live through the century. The catch is she'll live through the centuries, but nobody will be able to remember who she is. Nobody will be able to say her name, remember her name. She won't be able to speak her name, write it down. There will be no trace of her left in the world as long as she continues to live in it. Oh my gosh, just even talking about this book is just like pulling at my heart. I love Addie so much. I love these characters. Luke, I love the dynamic that the two of them have throughout the story and that keeps cropping up over the centuries, and just seeing Addie's journey throughout life pretty much. And kind of the turn of the story comes because Addie has lived all of these years and no one has been able to remember her, but one day in New York City she walks into this bookshop, and the bookseller there is able to say her name, and his name is Henry, and they have their own story that they go through, and it's perfect. But more than anything, I really fell in love with V.E. Schwab's writing style in this. I don't really have anything else to compare it to except when I read Vicious all those years ago. So to see the leap in her writing from Vicious to this is just, honestly, it was night and day, and I fell in love with the writing in this so much. I think V.E. Schwab just did an incredible job of establishing that connection between Addie and the reader, where you just feel so invested in her story, and it feels like you are going through it with her. You feel every heartbreak that happens, every moment of tension that happens. It's honestly, it's put on your heart. Well, it was put on my heart. I know people who don't like this book, but this is incredible. I don't even know what else to say about this book. This is absolutely incredible. Addie LaRue, #2 book of 2020. No surprise there. Okay, guys, I'm looking at the #1 book right now. A lot of you have already guessed what it is. I love this book. This is one of my new favorite books of all time. This is one of my new favorite fantasy series of all time. Nothing about this book needs to be changed. There doesn't need to be a word deleted, words added. Everything about all 527 pages is just top-notch storytelling. That book is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Let's sit with that for a moment. The #1 book of 2020 is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Oh, I get chills just saying it. Nothing I say about this book will do it justice. Absolutely nothing. I'm gonna throw it out there right now. I'm gonna try, but it won't work. In this book, we are following a war orphan named Rin. Rin comes from this really small village, and really nobody expects anything of her. And if she just keeps living the life that she's living, she's gonna be married off, her husband won't care about her, and just the expectations for her life are just in the dirt. They are completely low. Really, Rin's only chance of changing the course of her life is to enroll in one of the big academies in this empire. But in order to be accepted at one of the academies, you have to study for this exam that not many people pass. It's very exclusive, very elite, and people like Rin don't even have the resources to do well on this exam to even like make it to the threshold of one of these academies. But just even from the beginning, the determination that Rin shows in getting out of her situation and leaving her village behind is just unlike anything I've ever seen in a character before. It is so unreal. So she studies hard for this exam and she gets accepted at one of the most prestigious military academies in this empire. And while she's at the academy, she's learning along with the rest of her peers. However, as Rin is learning all of this and just trying to keep her spot at this academy, war is brewing, and it becomes pretty obvious that her class at this military academy is going to graduate into this war. So in the first half of the book, we're following Rin at this academy, and we find out that she has this affinity for the art of shamanism. And so under one of the teachers there, she begins to kind of develop that connection that she has with shamanism, specifically the Phoenix god. And we learn how just vengeful this god can be. But in the second half of the book, it's like the reader, we graduate into the war with Rin. She's in the thick of things, and R.F. Kuang does not shy away from the horrors of this war, of just, oh my God, just, I don't even know what to say about this book. Characters are dealing with opium addiction, and it's just so dark. It is so dark, but it is so good. I've never read a character like Rin before. I've never read a character so determined and intelligent and quick-witted and fierce, and just, this is amazing. I'm a little late to the Poppy War train, but I am here now. I'm on it. I'm probably driving it at this point. This is seriously one of the best books I've ever read. Point blank, period. So that is it for me, you guys. Those are the best books of 2020, the most incredible books that I read in the year. So let me know down in the comments if you have read any of these books, if you plan to, but also I want to hear what your best books of the year were. Gush about them in the comments. Let me know how the reading year went for you. Let me know some of your plans for the new year, some of your reading goals. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing holiday season and a happy new year, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.